media fraternity, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our 36th post-cabinet press briefing. Allow me at this juncture to invite the chairperson of this session, the Honorable Minister of Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services, Dr. Mswere, to present today's cabinet highlights. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you, Chief Secretary Dr. Martin Rushwaya, members of the Fourth Estate, fellow Zimbabweans. Today, the 2nd of December 2025, His Excellency the President, Dr. Idi Mnangagwa, chaired the Cabinet meeting. The following issues, among others, were considered and approved. Cabinet deliberated on the 2024-2025 summer crops marketing and the 2025 winter season crops production and the 2025-2026 summer season production plan. The grain stock at the Grain Marketing Board as at the 27th of November 2025 stands at 180,000 metric tons, out of which ADA has contributed 60,347 metric tons. The harvesting of the wheat crop has been completed with a total of 640,195 metric tons harvested from the 122,000 hectares at an average yield of 5.2 metric tons per hectare. Trials are underway at ADA to produce a variety with hard wheat characteristics. A total of 47,709 metric tons of barley has been harvested from the 6,156 hectares planted. A high average yield of 7.75 metric tons per hectare has been achieved compared to the 7 metric tons per hectare in the year 2024. Cabinet received a report regarding the violation of learners' rights at an institution in Harare, and following the disturbing reports that 9 candidates were barred from taking their final Zimbabwe School Examinations Council Family and Religious Studies ordinary level examinations. The learners were excluded on the grounds of turning up in haircuts which the authorities considered inappropriate. Following a meeting with both the school authorities and the parents or guardians of the affected learners, the government of Zimbabwe noted with concern that the action taken by the school authorities was inconsistent with the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education guidelines and the national regulations governing equitable access to education. Remedial action has been instituted. Cabinet received an update report on progress in terms of the refurbishment of the National Sports Stadium in Harare. The refurbishment is part of a broader endeavor to upgrade sports infrastructure across the country, and in particular to ensure that the local infrastructure satisfies conditions for hosting international events. Through a PPP model which was meant to accelerate refurbishment works, remarkable progress has been scored at the National Sports Stadium, including works on the pitch, the drainage, and herbicide application, with lawn planting expected to commence soon. The B Arena drainage works are also in progress, and overall progress on other works, including electricals, is at 90%. Cabinet also received reports in terms of the priority projects as at day 50 of the third 100-day cycle of 2025. In terms of the National Development Strategy 1, in terms of human capital development and innovation, the Minister of Higher Education innovation, science and technology development highlighted the following major achievements. The University of Zimbabwe Hospital in Mazoe District, Mashonaland Central, is at 77% in terms of completion. The Agro Innovation Center at Gwanda State University in Matabeleland South Province is at 88% in terms of completion. The construction of the E.D. Mnangagwa Law School in Kwekwe Midlands Province is being completed. The construction of the students' hostels at the Manicaland State University has reached 52% in terms of completion. And the Mtoko Bioeconomy Industrial Park Soap Factory in Mashonaland East Province is at 70% in terms of completion. The superstructure of the Central Analytical Services Laboratory at the Marondra State University in Mashonaland East Province has been completed. In terms of the housing delivery and social amenities pillar in terms of NDS 1, the Minister of National Housing and Social Amenities highlighted the following achievements. The Marondra Flats Housing Project in Mashonaland East Province is at 97% in terms of completion. The construction of health facilities at Uzumba Maramba Pfungwe and Mtawa Tower Housing Project in Mashonaland East Province is at 90% in terms of completion. The construction of health facilities in terms of Mother's Shelter in Mwenezi District, Mashingo Province is 100% complete. And the servicing of 432 stands in Midlands, Gweru, is progressing well. The servicing of 1,102 stands by Masimba Holdings in Shurugwi Midlands Province is progressing well, with the drainage having been completed and the roads at 90% in terms of completion. Under the Human Capital Development and Innovation, in terms of NDS 1, the Acting Minister of Skills Audit presented the following achievements. The skills fair competitions were successfully conducted in Chipinge, Chimanimani and Nyanga districts. The digital literacy training sessions were held for staff members from King George VI and Jairus Chiri Center in Bulawayo Metropolitan Province. And the ministry produced a national career guidance policy that will assist in the establishment of a coordinated, inclusive and forward-looking career guidance system that supports learners and job seekers at every stage of their lives. In terms of housing delivery and social amenities, the Minister of Public Service, Labour and Social Welfare reported the following progress. The construction of 3 blocks of flats at the National Building Society at Glaudina Phase 2 in Harare is at 63% in terms of completion. The construction of 300 housing units under the Bulawayo Accelerated Presidential Housing Scheme, the Rangemore Phase 2 is 42 units that are at shell structure level and 96% in terms of achievement in terms of the substructure level. The Rishavani Midlands Park project in Midlands Province, which houses 448 students, was commissioned by His Excellency the President, Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, having achieved 100% in terms of completion. The installation of solar panels is in progress, and the Madokero Creek Phase 2 housing project in Harare has reached 67% in terms of completion. Cabinet approved the MOU that will be entered into between the Republic of Zimbabwe and the Kingdom of Spain on cooperation in the field of tourism. The objective of the MOU between the two countries is to enhance and promote cooperation in the field of tourism through digital marketing, development of tourist destinations, diversification of tourist products, and the development of sustainable tourism. By Having the MOU, the two countries will also be strengthening their subsisting cordial relations. Cabinet approved the country's accession to the Hague Agreement concerning the registration of industrial designs. Zimbabwe joined the World Intellectual Property Organization in 1981 and signed its instruments to the World Intellectual Property Organization Convention on the 29th of September 1981. The Hague system is an international framework that governs the registration of industrial designs across multiple jurisdictions with minimal formalities. Acceding to the Hague Agreement will offer Zimbabwean designers a cost-effective and efficient mechanism for protecting industrial designs across multiple and thorough single international registration processes. Cabinet considered and approved the bilateral agreements between the Republic of Zimbabwe and other 4 states. The bilateral air services agreements will be entered into between Zimbabwe and the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, the Republic of Rwanda, and the Swiss Federal Council and the State of Kuwait. The 4 countries are contracting states of the Convention on the International Civil Aviation, which is the Chicago Convention. The objective of signing the agreement is to create and foster friendships, understandings, and cooperation, as well as to enhance the expansion of air transport opportunities. Cabinet considered and noted the report on the inaugural binational commission between the Republic of Zimbabwe and the Republic of Zambia. The inaugural binational commission between the 2 republics convened on the 14th of November 2025 and was co-chaired by His Excellency the President Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, and his counterpart, His Excellency H. Hichilema, the President of the Republic of Zambia. The 2 countries agreed on a number of areas and signed 5 MOUs in the following areas: diplomatic training, immigration and technical cooperation, labor and employment, agriculture, and youth development. Zimbabwe expressed gratitude to Zambia for its continued support in the anti-sanctions crusade. Cabinet received and noted the report on His Excellency the President Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa's state visit to the Republic of Mozambique. His Excellency the President Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa traveled to Mozambique and was in Mozambique from the 21st to the 22nd of November 2025. The President undertook the state visit to Mozambique and was received by President Daniel Chapo. The 2 heads of state and government convened the inaugural session of the Zimbabwe-Mozambique Binational Commission, and the objectives of the state visit in the Binational Commission were as follows: to review progress on the implementation of agreed areas of cooperation, to strengthen and consolidate the excellent, long-standing political and diplomatic ties, to explore new areas of cooperation between Zimbabwe and Mozambique, and to sign MOUs in designated sectors. The 2 countries will also cooperate in war veterans affairs, which will culminate in the rehabilitation and maintenance of liberation war shrines, museums, and monuments for the preservation of the liberation history and heritage. The one-stop border posts at the Forbes Machipanda and Nyamapanda Kuchamano will be operational by the end of the first quarter of 2026. The Binational Commission directed the removal of all barriers to the movement of people, goods, services, and all tariffs and non-tariff barriers to trade under the SADC and African Continental Free Trade Area frameworks. The 3 MOUs on women empowerment and gender equality, SMEs, and youth development were also signed during the Binational Commission. Cabinet received and noted the report on the 7th African Union European Union Summit, which His Excellency the President Dr. Idi Mnangagwa attended in Luanda, Angola, from the 24th to the 25th of November 2025. The joint summit was held under the theme Promoting Peace and Prosperity through Effective Multilateralism and co-chaired by His Excellency President Joao Lourenço and the President, who is also the President of the Republic of Angola, the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, and His Excellency Mr. Antonio Costa, President of the European Council. The summit, held on the backdrop of the 25th anniversary of the African Union European Union partnerships, was attended by 18 African Union and 16 European Union heads of state and government. During the summit, His Excellency the President Dr. Idi Mnangagwa called for the reform of the international financial architecture, comprehensive reform of the United Nations Security Council to address historical injustices against Africa, and to support for Zimbabwe's candidature for a non-permanent seat on the United Nations Security Council for the 2028-2029 term. The summit culminated in the Luanda Declaration, which reaffirmed the two unions' commitment to joint vision in terms of Vision 2030 and emphasized support for the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, including strengthening cross-border value chains. The declaration also noted that trade arrangements between the two blocs should unlock industrialization rather than perceive Africa as a raw materials supplier. Cabinet received and noted the report on the 2025 Regional World Children's Commemoration Day, which was held in Gaborone, Botswana, from the 14th to the 15th of November 2025. The Honorable Vice President Dr. CGDN Chiwenga led the Zimbabwean delegation to the commemorations, comprising government officials and 20 children from the Junior Parliament. In his address, the Honorable Vice President advised that Zimbabwe was investing in child-centered policies with heritage-based models, equipping learners with innovation and other important skills. He also stated that Zimbabwe was undertaking other programs, including the homegrown school feeding, keeping girls in school, and school health and wellness programs. Cabinet received and noted the report on the G20 Leaders Summit, which was held in Johannesburg, South Africa, from the 22nd to the 23rd of November 2025. The Honorable Vice President Dr. CGDN Chiwenga led the Zimbabwean delegation to the G20 Leaders Summit, which was held under the theme Solidarity, Equality and Sustainability. Zimbabwe was among the 16 countries outside the G20 that the South African government invited to the summit. The Honorable Vice President delivered national statements in 2 sessions. He expressed appreciation for the opportunity for Zimbabwe to engage with the G20 and collectively chart a common trajectory towards inclusive and sustainable economic growth. The Vice President urged G20 to reinforce a fair and transparent multilateral trading system under the World Trade Organization and to reform the international financial system to improve access to affordable and sustainable finance. He also underscored the need for value addition and beneficiation of minerals at source. Cabinet was briefed on the high-level meeting of the 26th session of the United Nations Tourism General Assembly held in Saudi Arabia from the 6th to the 14th of November 2025. The Minister of Tourism and Hospitality Industry reported that Zimbabwe was successfully elevated as Vice President at the 26th session of the United Nations Tourism General Assembly in Saudi Arabia. Zimbabwe was also elected to the United Nations Tourism Council for the period 2025 to 2029, together with Angola, Kenya, Seychelles, and Zambia. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for presenting today's cabinet highlights. Let us move to the first round of 3 questions. After those questions, the Honorable Ministers will respond to those questions.
Dr. Rushwaya, the 2 questions. The first 2 to the Minister of Primary and Secondary Education about the outcomes in terms of the learners who were barred from attending to their examinations, and what remedial action has been put in place in order to deter schools from doing the same. So the first 2 questions are to the Minister of Primary and Secondary Education. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. On the first question on government policy on haircut, we don't have an explicit policy, a clear-cut policy, but we want our students to be smartly dressed, and the haircut must resemble that they are students. On what measures were taken on school authorities that violated the fundamental rights of students to education and also to accessing examination, the headmaster and the director of the school both were arrested 2 weeks ago on Friday, and they appeared in court on Monday last week at the Mbare Magistrates Court. However, they were asked to pay because the matter was adjourned to the 9th. They were supposed to pay bail. They paid bail, and they are going to appear again before Mbare Magistrate on the 9th of December. On what will happen to the students, they wrote the first paper, the family and religious paper, and they missed the second paper. Because when they came back after the haircut had been done, it was 55 minutes into the examination, and our policies state that students are only allowed during the first 15 minutes when the exam starts. So the intervention we are going to take as government is that we are going to apply the aggregation policy, where we give an aggregate pass to the student. We are going to look at the top 4 students in how they performed in the first paper, and the last 4. Then we are going to mark their scripts and give a grade to those students who are affected, so they will not be disadvantaged, because we felt that we could not give another paper to those students, but we will use the aggregation policy to give a grade to the 9 candidates who were barred from writing the examination. Thank you.
And I would like to thank the 2 members who asked the questions. Let me start by saying Spain has always been a good source market for our destination. And this is before COVID, where the numbers would be between 12,000 and 15,000. But more so to say it would sit on number 5 or number 6 of the source markets for our destination. Now, the motivation for this MOU is that, number 1, the gastronomy tourism initiative that has been driven by our patron, Dr. Auxillia Mnangagwa, where we have seen the UN tourism initially invited here to Spain and to honor her for the work that she was doing. Gastronomy tourism value chain is considered as an initiative that drives sustainable tourism through communities. Now, Spain is the best country in Europe, together with France, that drive gastronomy tourism. Overall, France is #1. However, Spain is the best in using gastronomy tourism for sustainable tourism initiatives. So we have seen the similarities between our initiative for gastronomy tourism in Africa, as well as what Spain does with their communities. We want to learn from them. We are motivated by what they do. We want to learn more strategies around gastronomy tourism from them. But besides that, this MOU, Chairman, will strengthen the friendly relations that our governments have always had. His Excellency, as a mantra, Zimbabwe is open for business. We want to re-engage and engage. And through this MOU, we will have a mutual understanding between the two countries in the field of tourism. Coming to the issues of numbers, let me speak about the numbers that went down after COVID, which were just above 1,000 in 2022. And after the First Lady was invited to Spain, and with the relations that we are creating between the two countries, we have seen that in 2024, the numbers went up to slightly above 10,000. And we believe with this MOU, the numbers will increase more and more. But for the numbers for this year, I don't have them at hand. But to say the first half of the year, the numbers had already exceeded 8,000. I submit, Chairman.
Allow me, through you, Chair, and I also would like to thank the member for the question. Let me start by saying that the renovations at the National Sports Stadium are indeed at an advanced stage, and I am very, very grateful with the progress so far made. However, I have personally witnessed the contractors working flat out day and night, and I've given them the deadline for them to complete nearly all the refurbishment works at the National Sports Stadium. And the deadline in question, according to your question, is supposed to be done by the beginning of the 2026 season. However, I've also given them slightly time allowance for them to tie up the loose ends. And so, to be precise, it should be before the beginning of the 2026 season. I hope you are fully answered. Thank you, through Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Over to you, Dr. Masu.
Well, without going into the detail of the history of wheat production in Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe produces what actually is called spring wheat. And this is a soft wheat, and soft wheat is defined by the protein content and the falling numbers, and below 11% protein content, especially the gluten content, and falling numbers below 250 or so is defined as soft wheat. And that wheat would require mixing with hard wheat. And hard wheat ordinarily is grown in temperate areas. This is wheat that grows slowly and in winter, and therefore is able to give you the very high gluten content and also very high falling numbers. The combination of high gluten content and high falling numbers is critical, because the high falling number indicates that the quality of the dough, the flour dough, is consistent, so you can make good bread out of it. Whereas the gluten content allows the elasticity in bread. So it means that that bread can then form the shape and the starches are in the right place. And that's what we now have been, what we see. Zimbabwe, because we produce soft wheat, our target has always been to eliminate exports of soft wheat, which is why the annual requirement was put by Zimstats in 2017 at 360,000 metric tons annually. We think that the ratio ought to be 70% soft wheat to 30% hard wheat in bread, which is why we have allowed imports for those companies that have purchased 70% of their local requirement as soft wheat. So that is the context in which you see wheat imports happening. It is simply because the climatic conditions in Zimbabwe were deemed to be such that you could not produce hard wheat economically viably. But there are a few seed companies that have researched on hard wheat, and without naming them, the hard wheat production in Zimbabwe has always been associated with a lower yield per hectare. This is the first major breakthrough of a variety that combines the hard wheat characteristics and a higher yield. And over the past 4 years, we've been trialing this variety, and now we're at a stage where we are convinced that these characteristics that are thrown by this variety, white flour, high gluten content, high falling numbers, indicate that irrespective of the environment in which this variety is grown, these characteristics are thrown by this variety consistently. So we are confident now that we can enter a stage where we can begin to have the policy conversation and discussion around a strategy to produce enough of our soft wheat, but begin also to consider production of hard wheat with a view in the long term or medium term to ensuring that we achieve self-sufficiency for both hard wheat and soft wheat. So the motivation really is that localization of value chains and, of course, this continuing innovative quest to investigate better genetics that are suited to our environment. Thank you, Chairman.
In terms of BNCs, over to you, Honorable Maruira.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you, Mukudzei, for the question. I want to start by saying that Zimbabwe, Section 12, subsection 2 of the Constitution requires Zimbabwe to integrate into Africa. And integration starts with the neighbors. That's why in the implementation of this constitutional dictate, we start with the neighborhood principle, where we integrate in Africa step by step, thoroughly, starting with the neighbors. This is the context. And on the 14th of November 2025, His Excellency President E.D. Mnangagwa and His Excellency President Hichilema co-chaired the inaugural Binational Commission, which is the highest level of cooperation between states, between Zimbabwe and Mozambique, and Zambia, where we agreed on several things and upping the relations. And one of the methods that we have used to integrate is to make sure that we up our integration on jointly on the assets that include the Kariba, that include the Victoria Falls, but also on the issue of making sure that we remove all tariff and non-tariff barriers. So first, to make sure that our relationship is not a joint permanent commission of cooperation, it is up to a BNC. Next, we moved on, so we formed the Zimzam community there. Next, His Excellency moved on to Mozambique to also uplift our relations from a JPCC, which is the Joint Permanent Commission of Cooperation, to a binational commission of cooperation, which was there on the 22nd and 23rd of November 2025. So indeed, besides just responding to the constitutional dictates in word, this is being done indeed by His Excellency the President, starting with implementing the neighborhood first principle. You would know that by now, all countries around us are cooperating with us at that highest level. With Botswana, we have a binational commission. With South Africa, we have a binational commission. With Zambia, we now have a binational commission. With Mozambique, we now have a binational commission. So, based on that neighborhood principle, first principle, you can see that His Excellency the President has fulfilled the constitutional requirement of integrating into Africa. Do we have, I hope I mentioned that with South Africa we have a binational commission. No, so this is now a step towards doing more. When we look at our plans, when His Excellency was the chairperson of SADC, the chairman of SADC, he made sure that regional integration was his primary objective. And regional integration is done through joining the economies, basically, and destroying barriers. That's why he started the Regional Development Fund for SADC, and also made sure that the SADC countries work more closely together using a theme of industrialization and innovation. So indeed, yes, we are moving into the SADC region for closer cooperation, and you know that we are in the SADC Troika all the same until 2027. And in this agenda as well, moving into Africa, you would know that His Excellency the President is now, Dr. Idi Mnangagwa, is now the Vice Chair of COMESA. We are in the process of being the incoming chair until October next year, where His Excellency the President of Zimbabwe will become chair of COMESA. These are again, Mukudze, the movement towards closer regional cooperation, which means it's not only with these two that you saw. These two are adding to an already existing number, and we are adding more numbers to much closer cooperation. And we say, it means when you begin to trade, you begin to promote peace and coexistence to that end. Our objective is to create a society that is democratic, free, with people that have prosperous, happy, and fulfilling lives. And this is through regional integration. Regional integration enhances and reinforces Zimbabwe's sovereignty and the sovereignty of those that work with us. I thank you.